as a pathway to collective progress. For us as a country, part of the conversation is actually focusing on gender-based violence shelters, which provide safety, legal support, as well as recovery paths for survivors. So this discussion is coming at a time when gender-based violence is remaining widespread, and according to the 2024 Police Annual Crime Report, more than 12,000 GBV cases were reported, including over 1,600 cases being rape and more than 12,000 being defilement cases, with women and girls making the majority of the victims. Yet despite existing laws meant to protect these survivors, access to justice is remaining slow, and survivor support systems, including shelters, remaining limited and underfunded. So today in our Tech Note, we're looking and asking to ourselves, are we investing enough in the systems that should be protecting the survivor and advancing gender justice? Joining me is Shadia Namanda, who's the program officer at Women's Pro Bono Initiative. Shadia, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, tell us more about Women's Pro Bono Initiative in this perspective.
Good morning to the viewers. The Women's Pro Bono Initiative is a not-for-profit organization that was established in 2018 to boldly advance gender justice using through promoting autonomy, voice, and agency of women. Yes, so the organization, we are located in Tinda.
Okay.
Yes, and
so as we are setting the scene marking International Women's Day, Give to Gain, your organization is highlighting the need to invest in GBV shelters. Yes. Why are shelters such a critical part of addressing and advancing women's rights today? So
maybe before I talk about that, I feel I need to just talk about the theme generally, then maybe I can talk about that. So the theme for this year, Give to Gain, mainly connotes to the fact that whenever women's rights are being advocated for, some people, most especially the men, it's always the men, they always feel like that they are being left behind, or that it's a loss for them, or that they are being forgotten. So the theme this year seeks to show us that women's rights are not just a women's issue, but it's a human issue. You know, a bird cannot fly with just one wing. If we want society to rise, we need to uphold both genders. We need to uphold both men and women's rights. So this goes to show that investing in women's rights is beneficial to both men and women, even though the men usually do not see it. So particularly for this, for the investment in in GBV shelters. So we are at a time where the funding cuts, you know, was it last year with the coming of the Trump's administration, there were funding cuts from the government, for the civil society organizations, and these were the ones that were mainly supporting GBV shelters. So when that happened, many GBV shelters were closed. And yet these serve benefits of providing protection. We have quite a number of domestic violence cases going on. For example, like you've cited, the police crime report that showed that 12,442 GBV cases were reported in 2024, and among those, 1,607 cases of rape were reported, and this is just against the girls. So realize that the majority of the number that are being affected is the girls and the women. And now the problem is most people who suffer GBV, when it comes to the women, they usually do not have a financial dependency. They rely on their perpetrators. So by all means, even if the person is being tortured, they cannot go out to report because they have nowhere to go after. So this is how the GBV shelters come in. So with their closure, there are many people who are stuck with their perpetrators, and they continue being subjected to violence.
Mm-hmm. Could you help us understand the role these shelters are playing, just beyond providing temporary accommodation?
So, save for the temporary accommodation, like I explained, the protection. So once a person reports a case with the police or with their local council chairperson, they can be provided the accommodation, and then they get a chance to pursue legal remedies in the absence of the perpetrator. This would not be possible in the event that the person is still living with the perpetrator, because how is she going to testify against that same person who's providing for her? Then the other thing is there is also economic empowerment. So many a time when a person or a girl has been rescued from a child marriage and they are taken to the GBV shelter, they are provided with services such as healthcare, but also economic empowerment. They're empowered with soft skills that can take them through life, and others, they are usually sent back to school.
Okay, so there's economic impact that comes with, it's not just about accommodating them. But I see the things that you're mentioning all come down to funding, and you earlier alluded to the fact that funding, we have increased funding gaps, especially when it comes to addressing gender-based violence in Uganda. So that being said, in practical terms, how can we invest enough in these GBV shelters to make them sustainable but also accessible to survivors across the country?
So let me start with a theme: give to gain. When people are told to give, it's not limited to monetary giving. Anything can amount to giving. It could be providing someone with a platform to speak up. It could be providing any kind of opportunities, advice, but of course, yeah, even the money can come in. Then it can also be information. So if we are talking about funding for GBV shelters, much as, yes, the funding, the monetary one is needed, but also we also look at other aspects like opportunities to speak up for women who are suffering GBV. So if someone gets a platform to share their story, a funder somewhere could be touched and, you know, they are influence to fund. So it comes a long way. It's not limited just to funding. So, but unfortunately, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development has a low budget compared to most ministries. So this makes it hard to establish many GBV shelters, because right now there are very, very few shelters, and yet funding from the government is limited, but also the collaborations between the government and civil society is a bit restrained. Many of the times when civil society comes up to speak up on something, they're usually held as if they are violating the laws. Some have been shut down. I think you've seen that from the recent elections. So there is that friction going on between civil society and the government, and yet in actual sense the two are supposed to be working together. When civil society raises issues that are affecting people, it's not to try to overthrow the government. It should be taken as positive criticism for the government to do better.
Okay. That being said, there's also the element of stigma and the anti-rights narrative. So beyond the financial struggles or challenges that survivors face, there's also the part of stigma that if I'm in this shelter, it obviously means that I have been a victim of gender-based violence. There's the victim blaming, there's the harmful narratives that really discourage reporting. How serious is this problem, at what needs and where does it need to actually change in order to protect the survivor?
So some of the things we usually do, like I explained, if we are talking about giving, it's not just the funding. It also means speaking up against such harmful narratives. So as civil societies or as the Women's Pro Bono Initiative, we usually engage community members to talk to them about GBV and the different forms. So whenever we address that, so we usually realize that most women do not know their rights. And when you let them know, maybe a person can be like, so there was a time we were in Buyende, and some women thought it was actually okay to be beaten by their husbands.
It was prestigious to be
exactly. If your husband does not beat you, it means he does not love you. So we had to demystify and make sure such narratives are done away with, but also the issue with being in the GBV shelter, they are usually protected and their locations are not disclosed to the perpetrators.
Okay.
So a person is provided more protection that the perpetrator will not be able to do it to get to them.
Okay. That being said, we need to still look at the reality, because this is a gender-based thing. So it takes one to affect the other.
Yeah.
And so I want to find out how exactly you are promoting a positive role for our men to actually be part of the solution against gender-based violence.
So we have programs on male engagement, where we try to train or sensitize communities with men inclusive, and try to show them that some of the things that they believe are supposed to be happening are actually violations towards the women's rights. And well, while it's hard, like I explained, every time you try to engage them, they tell you, why are you forgetting us, the men? You people have forgotten about us. Our women beat us. That's the reality, but the problem is they always seem to raise it whenever we are talking about women's issues. So we still let them know that, yes, assault generally is not okay, whether you're a man or a woman. But the problem is that the assault being occasioned to the women in the form of the GBV is something that is being done as a culture aspect or a tradition, that I have to beat you, that you are my wife, you are not allowed to own any property, or that I own you. You know, some of them think that if I went to your home and we did an introduction ceremony, I paid the bride price, you are now my property. So we have to engage the men and let them know that some of these things that they've grown up experiencing, the things they've grown up seeing, are actually a violation of the rights of the women.
Okay, as we close this conversation, what does collective action actually realistically look like for us in Uganda, to the different stakeholders, in order to reduce gender-based violence against our women and children, but also strengthen the survivor support systems that are existing? So
if we are looking at collective action, we have to work together. This is not a one-man problem. You cannot, while yes, if you work alone, you would make some steps towards contributing to the solving of the problem, but efforts are greater when you come together as stakeholders. So now for the government, I mean, the new financial year is coming up. If only they could increase the funding of the Ministry of Gender and Labour, so that they are able to establish more GBV shelters. Then for the civil society organizations, well, we can always partner. We are always open to partnering with government. And considering that we do most of the groundwork, we have more experience, so it would be really helpful and useful for us to partner with government. But also, as civil society, we also need funding to be able to establish the GBV shelters, but still to try and make sure that the problem that GBV is dealt with, we continue to challenge the norms that fuel gender-based violence.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Shadia,
You're
from
welcome.
Women's Pro Bono Initiative that is positioning itself to actually make as much publicity and awareness about survivors' protection mechanisms that do exist in the country, as that together we can actually contribute to reducing gender-based violence and its impact on our communities. So as the world is commemorating International Women's Day, the message is becoming increasingly clear that is achieving gender equality, and it is requiring more than celebration.